we don't mind Thailand or ASEAN country or any other country to be friends of the United States at all. We are very open. You keep good friendship with other countries, with the United States. We don't mind, but do not cut into China's core interests.
And what are the core interests
of
China?
Like the issue of Taiwan, for instance. Yeah.
เปิดใจนักวิชาการจีนล้วงลึกทุกประเด็นร้อนจีนจะเอาชนะสหรัฐให้ได้ใช่หรือไม่สีจิ้นผิงเป็นเผด็จการหรือไม่และจีนมองไทยอย่างไรสวัสดีค่ะความขัดแย้งทางภูมิรัฐศาสตร์ระหว่างจีนกับสหรัฐไม่มีทีท่าว่าจะผ่อนคลายลงเลยนะคะ Global Focus พูดคุยกับศาสตราจารย์ดร.จางเหวยเว่ยเป็นอาจารย์ด้านความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างประเทศและผู้อำนวยการสถาบันวิจัยประเทศจีนมหาวิทยาลัยฟู่ตันอยู่ที่เซี่ยงไฮ้ค่ะดิฉันถามไปหลายเรื่องเลยจีนต้องการจะเป็นมหาอำนาจเบอร์หนึ่งของโลกใช่ไหมจีนอยากให้ใครเป็นประธานาธิบดีคนต่อไปมากกว่ากันโจไบเดนหรือว่าโดนัลด์ทรัมป์จีนกับสหรัฐใครแผ่อิทธิพลในภูมิภาคเอเชียตะวันออกเฉียงใต้ได้ดีกว่ากันจีนมองไทยอย่างไรและประธานาธิบดีสีจิ้นผิงเป็นเผด็จการใช่หรือไม่เราลองมาฟังมุมมองของนักวิชาการจากจีนกันบ้างนะคะว่ามองประเด็นเหล่านี้อย่างไรค่ะศาสตราจารย์จางเหวยเว่ยเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญด้านความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างประเทศและเป็นผู้อำนวยการของสถาบันวิจัยประเทศจีนณมหาวิทยาลัยฟู่ตันในอดีตศาสตราจารย์จางเคยทำหน้าที่เป็นล่ามภาษาอังกฤษอาวุโสให้กับเติ้งเสี่ยวผิงตลอดจนผู้นำจีนอีกหลายคนในช่วงยุค 1980 และเดินทางไปเยือนประเทศต่างๆมาแล้วนับร้อยประเทศในโอกาสพิเศษนี้ Global Focus ได้เชิญอาจารย์จางมาพูดคุยในหลากหลายแง่มุมเกี่ยวกับจีนที่เราอาจไม่เคยรู้มาก่อนค่ะ Professor Zhang, what is China's ambition on the international stage? Is it to change the world order led by the US, or China wants to become a superpower and number one in the world? What's the goal?
Well, in fact, I'll not say China's ambition, but the Chinese vision for a kind of multipolar world order. Because we do feel, I think many countries in global south also feel that the unipolarity is unfair, immoral, and unjust, which has caused many wars, sufferings from Arab Spring to Arab Winter, from all kinds of wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, in Africa. So I think, as the saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Unipolarity is absolute power. We need to have a more democratic international system and global order. We have a more kind of multipolarity and more democratic style of international affairs. So that's Chinese vision. And I think it's already gradually taking shape.
But it's taking shape in a way that is causing a lot of geopolitical tension, especially between China and the US. So how is the world going to be like?
If you look at the difference between the style of foreign policy between the two big powers, China and the United States, I see the key difference is for the United States, it's either with us or against us, a friend or foe. The Chinese philosophy is much more sophisticated because we are from a time-honored civilization. And we believe that it could be a friend or potential friend. I told my American friends, I said, you prefer a kind of new Cold War. I think it's very stupid because this Cold War idea is based on this philosophy of what's called the mutually assured destruction. I said, no, we share you some Chinese wisdom, Asian wisdom. Given all the available conditions, we could well have mutually assured prosperity.
So the multipolar world that China envisions is to have China, the US, Russia, Europe, and the global south. Is that how it is?
Obviously, Russia is one pole. If you look at the recent statements by Russian leaders, United States treat Russia as a very small economy, the size of Spain, But now Russian leaders said, we are the largest economy in Europe. In many ways, it's true. It's based on purchasing power parity and other resources. And also, global south as a whole is also a pole. If you look at the expansion of BRICS, now 10 members, they put together the size of the BRICS, 10 members included, is already much larger than G7. Roughly 37% of GDP for these 10 members. And for G7, it's altogether 30%, all by purchasing power parity. So the world is already different. Then you can see all the rise of other countries. Yeah. For Europe, it depends on how do you look at Europe today. I just came back from France, and I said you should learn from ASEAN. For so many years, because I came to this region 10 years, 15 years back, many times. At that time, here people talk about we should learn from EU, including security framework. But the EU as a pole, to a great extent, depends on its strength as an autonomous power with strategic independence. Now we saw what has happened was over the past 10 years, it's losing more and more. So it became almost a vessel kind of institution under the United States. That's remarks of President Macron of France. He said, we must show our autonomy, strategic independence from the United States. He said this openly now. I remember I gave an interview to a British journalist. He said, what will be the British role in the multipolar world? I said, I'm sorry, because can you see something different from the United States? No, so why should we talk to you? We talk to Americans, that will do. In other words, as a pole, you must have your independence and autonomy. So ASEAN can be a pole as a whole. I said, if you look at the past 4 or 5 decades, Asia represented by ASEAN and China, with over 2 billion people, 3 times more than the European population. We have maintained peace, development, and prosperity in Asia. But Europe has lost peace, stability, and development. Their economy is now in recession. Yeah.
สงครามการค้าระหว่างจีนและสหรัฐรอบใหม่เริ่มร้อนระอุมากยิ่งขึ้นหลังจากที่สหรัฐจ่อขึ้นภาษีสินค้านำเข้าจากจีนในอัตราที่สูงลิ่วอ้างเพื่อตอบโต้นโยบายการค้าที่ไม่เป็นธรรมของจีนขณะที่ฝั่งจีนก็โต้กลับว่าจะปกป้องผลประโยชน์ของชาติทุกวิถีทางศึกครั้งนี้ใครได้ใครเสียThe U.S. I think is arguing on the ground of national security as well, and also how the Chinese government is subsidizing and then lowering the prices or dumping your products into their market, as well as the EU, EV cars or solar panels as well. What would you say to that?
They fail to understand the real situation in China. China is a vast country. It's 1.4 billion people. Inside China, it's extremely competitive. For instance, we have about 100 companies producing EV cars, and they compete with each other. As the scale of Chinese market is huge for China's domestic market, and the competition is fierce and intense. So the goods are better, services are better. Furthermore, we are way ahead of Europe and United States in the AI application for all kinds of technologies and manufacturing industries. I said to my European friends, our cars are designed by internet engineers, not by the old type field engineers. That's the difference. And in China today, it's not, the state cannot subsidize 100 companies. No. It's a real market competition within China. After so much competition within China, they are internationally competitive.
But when they go out, maybe the government gives them a little bit of help?
No.
At all?
Fact, no. It's the United States subsidize its own companies from all kinds of companies. Now the United States openly advocates industrial policy as a way to check what happened, the rise of China. Same with Europe, from agricultural produce. Why should you subsidize your agriculture? If you believe in economic liberalism, comparative advantages, ASEAN and Africa can produce far better quality and cheaper price, you subsidize. Same way now with all kinds of AI, automobile industries. When China was weak in few traditional cars, we were open to European brands, American brands. We had joint ventures here. But in the same process, we tried to learn from them and produce better cars. Now, with so much competition, China is becoming the largest, what we call electric cars in this whole sector and the whole chain of production, from battery to machines to the whole cars. Yeah.
I think just a while ago, we have globalization and not fragmentation like today. And the US and China's relations was pretty good and the whole will prosper. What went wrong, Professor? What's the turning point that, that made us where we are here today?
Yeah. The turning point was United States for a long time advocated, free market and free trade. They felt that China became their competitor in many areas. It starts from Huawei's edge in 5G. And from China's plan, what's called the Made in China, or Manufacturing China, Made in China 2025. And all of a sudden felt, well, China can do better than the United States in many areas, which is the case. And then they began to move away from free trade and open liberal economic system. So China now is the strongest advocate of open trade, free trade. Amazing, yeah. I always say, if you look at the globalization as a process, the old one on the unipolar world is gradually replaced by a kind of new type of globalization, represented by China and ASEAN, by BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, which is based on entirely new ideas, what we call the discussing together, building together, benefiting together. I remember when China signed its first framework agreement with ASEAN, the Chinese leader said, in 10 years, if this agreement is somehow you think too much in the advantage of China rather than ASEAN, and we can renegotiate a new agreement. So this is very open-minded. We really believe in win-win. Yeah.
Who does China prefer to become the next leader of the US, Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
I don't know the position of the Chinese government. And perhaps one day they will show their preference. At this particular stage, as a Chinese, educated Chinese, we think at least Donald Trump provides a lot of fun. To be honest, if you look at the overall strategy advocated by Donald Trump, he's on the whole more or less withdrawing because he realized the United States has reached its limits. He starts each and every his statements, America is a failing nation. We have to look after ourselves. So he's withdrawing. Maybe for the interest of the United States, it's better to know it has reached its limit. And overreach is always the cause of the decline of the major powers.
เป็นที่ทราบกันดีนะคะว่าจีนเป็นมหามิตรกับรัสเซียถึงขั้นที่ว่าผู้นำของทั้งสองชาติประกาศย้ำความเป็นหุ้นส่วนแบบไร้ขีดจำกัดแต่ขณะเดียวกันจีนก็เป็นเพื่อนที่ดีกับยูเครนด้วยท่ามกลางสงครามระหว่างรัสเซียและยูเครนที่ล่วงเลยเข้าปีที่3จีนจะวางตัวในสงครามที่ยืดเยื้อนี้อย่างไร Now for the war, the Russian and the Ukrainian war. Why does China actually send in military parts to Russia? If you say you want peace, you want prosperity.
No, China is a major power. Russia is a major power. We have a strategic partnership for many, many years. So it's on very good relations for always. Both China have good relations with, China has good relations with both Russia and Ukraine for many years. And Ukraine is also China's strategic partner. So we are not particularly happy at all with this outbreak of this conflict. the war itself is controversial. Yet, Russia's position on changing the unipolarity, unipolar world order, received a lot of understanding within China and outside China, within the global South.
Being an aggressor?
Not aggressor, because this unipolar order, if you look at we look at historical causes for this crisis, the 5 expansions of NATO. And many people, including Henry Kissinger, including some opinion leaders in Europe, in China, in United States, already counseled NATO not to do this aggressive expansion. It cut into Russia's core interest. And we all knew something will happen if that went that far. So this is very unfortunate. And I said openly many years ago, China will not allow NATO to expand to Asia. It's a kind of source of trouble and source of military, wars. But Russia has tolerated the NATO expansion for 5 times. In the end, Putin said no. So this historical background, I think this kind of geopolitical expansion is not sensible, as counseled by many wise opinion leaders for many, many years. Having said that, we are against this kind of way to deal with international affairs. We think there should be a negotiated solution. China said very clearly we did not supply weapons to Russia. China and Russia are normal trading power, strategic alliance in many areas. And we constantly say no to the United States. You sell weapons to Taiwan, to Chinese Taiwan province. It's not allowed. It's against law, against whatever agreements between China and the United States. So it's an accusation from the United States against China. It's ridiculous.
ความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างจีนไต้หวันสหรัฐอยู่ในสภาวะที่ซับซ้อนและอ่อนไหวมากที่สุดในเวทีการเมืองระหว่างประเทศหากสมดุลของความสัมพันธ์3เศร้านี้เกิดแปรผันจะมีวันที่ถึงจุดแตกหักถึงขั้นเกิดสงครามหรือไม่ Will we ever see a hot war between the US and China, especially over Taiwan?
And if you look at the comments made usually by US military, it's on the whole very cautious. I think China and Chinese Taiwan province can find a peaceful solution in the end. We Asian people, Chinese people have enough wisdom to do that. But on the other hand, we have clear red lines. Taiwan will be unified with the mainland. Whether the United States militarily intervene or not, this is very clear, made this very, very clear. And further militarily, I think the United States knows it cannot fight war with China.
Why not?
It will lose, as clear as that.
What are the main reasons that made you believe so, Professor?
Over the past decades, China's defense capability has been evolving and developing to such a degree that we have tremendous confidence in China's defense capability, China's super large modern state, super large modern defense capability. By the way, I told my American friends many times, even when China was weaker than today, 100 times weaker, we were not hesitant if red line was crossed by the United States. During the time of Cold War, Soviet Union and United States did not fight hot war, but 2 major hot wars occurred between China and the United States in the Korean battlefield in the 1950s and in the Vietnamese battlefield. Both involved direct, large-scale military confrontation between China and the United States. We all know who won and who is the loser.
หากมองในแง่ภูมิรัฐศาสตร์โลกเอเชียตะวันออกเฉียงใต้ถือเป็นอีกหนึ่งพื้นที่สำคัญที่สหรัฐและจีนพยายามเข้ามาสร้างอิทธิพลรวมถึงในไทยเราด้วยศาสตราจารย์จางมองว่าใครเป็นผู้ชนะระหว่างพญาอินทรีและพญามังกร Now, China and the U.S. are trying to have influence in this region, Southeast Asia, including Thailand as well. Who do you think is winning?
No, Chinese philosophy is far more inclusive. We don't mind Thailand or ASEAN country or any other country to be friends of the United States at all. We are very open. Our philosophy is a friend or potential friend. The only condition is this country, particular country, should not cut into China's own core interest. You keep good friendship with other countries, with the United States, we don't mind, but do not cut into China's core interests.
And what are the core interests of China?
Like the issue of Taiwan, for instance. Yeah, and so China has adopted a very open attitude. On the other hand, as I said, what the United States can offer to Thailand, to ASEAN, you give a list, and what China can offer to Thailand, to ASEAN. China can offer 10 times, 20 times, 3 times, 30 times more goods, products, and other things, because we are the largest manufacturing power, industrial power, and trading nation. We're very confident about that. As a result, China is, for a decade, Thailand's largest trading partner. China is also now the largest investor in Thailand. I'm glad about this, because indeed, Chinese have a lot of goodwill for the Thai. Same with the Thai, a lot of goodwill for the Chinese because of cultural, whatever, connections.
So I think China might be able to offer Thailand in terms of economics, as you said. But maybe the US or some Western countries, they can offer us something on the ideological concepts like democracy, free speech, human rights. And of course, they do have their economics offer of relations as well. So on that front, on the ideological front, can China compete with those Western countries?
I think the world is entering a new stage I call awakening. If you look at the opinion surveys, even in ASEAN, on the whole, if you have to think of China and the United States as opposites, more and more in favor of China. If there is competition in terms of hard power and soft power, you refer to soft power. Perhaps this crisis in Middle East between Hamas and Israel, etc., it's almost like a kind of watershed. People began to see the hypocrisy, double standards adopted by major Western countries. They're losing soft power. If you're really respecting human rights, respecting democracy, respecting the values you advocate, why don't start with this particular region in the Middle East? Yeah, do something in honest. People look at this, it's now internet world. People know everything.
How does China view Thailand?
I think because the first foreign country I visited was Thailand. Was Bangkok. That was in 1982.
A long time ago.
Yeah, over 4 decades ago. And I was at that time deeply impressed because China was at the very early stage of reform and opening up. And Thailand, or Bangkok, was ahead of Shanghai. And so we began to study why Thailand and ASEAN countries like Singapore are doing better than China. Then we began this larger scale reform and opening up, and China has made a fast progress. So now China is internationally competitive. Shanghai is also internationally competitive. On the whole, given the historical relationship, cultural closeness, Chinese people have a lot of goodwill for the Thai people, for Thailand. People love Thailand.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
There are many Chinese overseas doing illegal activities here in Thailand as well. Is the Chinese government doing anything about it, or is it out of the jurisdiction?
In each and every country, you have good people, honest people. They are usually the majority, but there are also bad elements. So we should handle this according to law. And China, I think, respect the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Thailand. If it's a Chinese citizen in violation of Thai laws, you will punish them according to Thai laws. The Chinese government will support that. So no doubt about this. In the case with many countries, very often this kind of criminal activities have both domestic reasons and international causes. So what we need is international cooperation and China-Thai cooperation in handling these cases. But this kind of negative whatever things cannot override this overall positive picture for China-Thai relations. It's so much on the whole positive. If you look at economic picture, Thai's strategic objectives for renewable energy, for electric cars, for green economy, all this China is there to help because we are the leaders in these areas.
ย้อนกลับไปเมื่อวันที่ 10 มีนาคม 2023 ที่ประชุมสภาประชาชนแห่งชาติจีนลงมติรับรองให้สีจิ้นผิงขึ้นดำรงตำแหน่งประธานาธิบดีสมัยที่ 3 ส่งผลให้เขากลายเป็นผู้นำจีนสมัยใหม่ที่ดำรงตำแหน่งยาวนานที่สุดนับตั้งแต่ยุคของเหมาเจ๋อตุงแต่นั่นก็ทำให้หลายฝ่ายมองว่าการสืบต่ออำนาจที่ยาวนานเช่นนี้เข้าข่ายเป็นเผด็จการหรือไม่ President Xi Jinping is now in his third term. Is he an educator, changing the rules so that he can stay on? That's what dictators do.
No. This idea of democracy versus dictatorship is very old-fashioned, And under Chinese political system, it's inconceivable a leader like George W. Bush could launch two very stupid wars, Afghan war and this Iraq war, which caused so many damages to the United States, to the region, to these countries. China practices democratic centralism. So Xi Jinping is one leader in the political bureau, has only got one vote. So we have the internal democracy there. The Chinese system is what we call selection plus election. The United States system is election. So the selection plus election is much better than simply rely on election. And if you look at the criteria for Chinese top leadership, say members of political bureau, a standing committee, usually these members already served as governor of a Chinese province or one or two or three provinces. They've governed already over 100 million people before they come to the current position. So Chinese leadership is arguably the most competent in the world.
Competent, I don't argue with that.
Yeah.
That's for you to judge.
Yeah.
But not democratic in the sense that you don't let people directly elect them. You don't trust the people?
No. This is the key difference because this definition of democracy as one person, one vote is what we call the procedural democracy. It's about procedures for democratic system. In the case of China, we focus far more on the what we call substantive or substantial democracy, the overall objective of democracy, which for Chinese mind is to realize and achieve good governance. And so from this criteria, good governance, we try to have our own democratic system and procedural democracy. As a result, we have produced this what we call selection plus election, but selection first. Second, we have extensive consultative democracy. I'll give you an example. We produced 5-year plan. I mentioned EV cars, result of 4 or 5-year plans. This process of producing these plans involves hundreds, thousands of rounds of consultation discussions at all levels of Chinese society and structure, state structure, etc. China is a country larger than all the Western countries combined in terms of population. So what China has practiced is a good way. It's very suitable for the Chinese conditions. And we're very proud of that. We are not afraid of competition between political systems. Our system can deliver. Your system, American system, cannot deliver. See, gun control, it's so easy issue, but United States inconceivable. drug control. For China, we can do this easily. United States cannot do it. How many people died of gun violence every year? How many people died of this drug abuse every year? Tens of thousands of, for Chinese minds, failure system. You may refer to my debate with Professor Fukuyama, the author of The End of History, in the year 2011. At that time, Arab Spring occurred in Egypt, other countries. He said the Arab Spring may also occur in China. I said, no chance. I said, from my knowledge of that particular region, Arab Spring will soon become Arab Winter. Then Fukuyama said, China needs political reform. I said, both China and United States need political reform. But United States need more political reform. Why? Because your political system is a product of pre-industrial society. Now it's the 21st century. You have to keep with changing times. Otherwise, I made another prediction. United States will elect a president worse off than George W. Bush. It turned out to be true. I made that forecast back in 2011.
เวลานี้จีนกำลังเผชิญกับสารพัดปัญหาที่ส่งผลกระทบต่อการเติบโตทางเศรษฐกิจทั้งวิกฤตในภาคอสังหาริมทรัพย์และหนี้ท้องถิ่นที่พุ่งสูงจีนจะแก้ปัญหานี้อย่างไร Let's talk about the economy a bit, Professor. Now, the world is seeing China with some economic problems in the property sector, high debt in the local governments, and also not growing as fast as China used to be. So what's the root of the problem and what's the progress in dealing with it?
If you look at the basic statistics, China economy grew by 5.2% last year. Do you know what does it mean? It means that China contributed roughly at least 30% of the economic growth worldwide. In other words, if in the year 2023, there was an increase of $100 for the economy in the world, $30 from Chinese contribution. That's already impressive, Furthermore, if China just want to have economic growth rate, that's very easy. But we want to have a particular type of growth and growth rate. This type is important. We call it high quality growth rate. So in fact, the central government in many ways forced Chinese industry to make transitions to move up in value chains. So within 3 to 5 years, China has become the leader in renewable energies. Now China contribution in renewable energy roughly is 70%, if not more, worldwide. Same with electric cars and with other sectors. So many people, if you go to China very often, you will see changes every year virtually. So we deliberately reduce the whatever traditional sector and try to move into up-end productions. Even for traditional sector, we want to somehow add this new elements, AI, new technology to the traditional sector so that they become more modern. As for this real estate debts, local government debts, these are issues that we can resolve because the key difference between Chinese debts and the American debts is behind the Chinese debts, they are real stuff. You have roads, warehouses, equipment, housing projects, but behind American debts, it's bubbles, it's financial derivatives. We are a socialist country. These debts can be big for a particular sector, can be big for a particular company, can be big for a particular city. But for China as a whole, these debts are very manageable.
But it seems that the crisis hits the average normal people quite a bit, and they lose a lot of money. And for young people, it's hard to own a house. It's hard to make a living these days, to have a good level of living. What would you say to that?
China's today's home ownership is already more than all the Western countries. In the countryside, 100%. In the cities, it's 85 to 90%. So China had the highest home ownership in the world for 1.4 billion people for such a nation. It's already impressive. Maybe these young people say, hey, I cannot afford housing in Shanghai. But I tell you the secret. Their fathers, their parents have properties. Don't worry. And we even do not have this, what we call the tax for ownership, whatever. So they are 10 times, 20 times better than we were young.
Professor, you said how China is trying to support its technology industry and how fast it is progressing. But sometimes you will see news like Jack Ma of Alibaba being sidelined, have to stay low because he criticized some government regulators and then he couldn't list his company in the stock market. How come there are stories like that?
Stories you have heard. The basic typical feature of the Chinese model of development is we should keep a balance between three powers: social power, political power, and power of capital, in a balance in favor of the vast majority of the Chinese population. So the case you mentioned represents, from my point of view, a kind of power of capital excessively influencing this balance. In the end, we find that balance will be in favor of minority. So the government began to intervene to stop this kind of imbalance. And this is very important. That's the reason why the Chinese system work much better than the American system. I always say, in the case of China, the richest 100 individuals cannot dictate the Chinese Communist Party or its political bureau. But in the United States, the richest 50 guys can dictate the White House. That's a key difference. So China will not allow whoever financial tycoon to dictate the government. Government task is to ensure overall balance between the three powers in favor of the most people. That's key. And so we have worked in that way. In the end, you find that if you go to China, you see these internet giants, including Alipay, dynamic. They know certain deviations should be addressed. It's all for their interest. You focus more on delivering tangible benefits for the people, rather than like the Wall Street, financializing their company, financializing their whatever businesses, as a result, hurting most people. Look at the Boeing crisis, financialization of Boeing company. As a result, they ignore the quality and they deliver poor airplanes. As a result, the whole reputation goes down. So we have prevented this crisis.
Professor Zhang, you're viewed by your critics as a propaganda machine, as the informal spokesperson of the Chinese Communist Party. Is that true?
No, it's based on solid research. I always say, we're very open to debate. My debate with Fukuyama is an example. Now, how many years have passed? So you see, so when you can predict Arab Spring to Arab Winter, you can predict United States will elect a worse off president, whatever. And that shows you have done thorough study. You do know this Western system and Chinese system, Western model and Chinese model thoroughly. So the United States and the Western media prefer to use labels. I think it's very stupid, not sophisticated. The Chinese philosophy for the whole success is the famous remark by Deng Xiaoping and even by Chairman Mao, which is called seek truth from facts. So when we look at the United States, we used to say United States is a capitalist country, imperialist country, it's bad. But we said seek truth from facts. And we said we should learn whatever is good in capitalism in the United States. We've learned a lot from the West, from the United States. But we also make sure that we should do better than the United States, than the West. That's what we are doing. So we usually do not use labels against others. We call seek truth from facts. Whenever I give lecture in Thailand, in Malaysia, in other United States, in Europe, I'm always open to questions. I said, please raise your question. No taboo whatsoever. Just like our interview. No taboo whatsoever.
Thank you so much Professor
Thank
Zhang
you.
for your time today 很谢谢你ขอบคุณค่ะ
谢谢 Thank you very much. Thank you.
ดิฉันถามอาจารย์จางด้วยนะคะว่าแล้วความตึงเครียดระหว่างจีนกับสหรัฐจะจบอย่างไรและเมื่อไหร่อาจารย์จางอธิบายแบบนี้ค่ะว่าตอนแรกสหรัฐไม่ยอมรับความสำเร็จของจีนตั้งคำถามค่ะว่าสำเร็จได้ยังไงเป็นเผด็จการไม่ใช่หรือส่วนตอนนี้สหรัฐโกรธที่จีนสามารถแซงหน้าสหรัฐได้อาจารย์จางเขาว่าแบบนั้นนะคะแต่สหรัฐก็รู้ค่ะว่ายังไงก็ต้องพูดคุยเจรจากับจีนและในที่สุดสหรัฐก็จะยอมรับจีนอย่างที่จีนเป็นนั่นก็คือว่าไม่มีอะไรที่จะมาสามารถหยุดยั้งการเติบโตของจีนได้จะไปถึงจุดนั้นเมื่อไหร่อาจารย์จางบอกว่าก็ตอบไม่ได้เหมือนกันนะคะแต่หวังว่าสหรัฐจะเข้าใจแนวโน้มนี้ให้เร็วที่สุดเพื่อประโยชน์ของสหรัฐเองส่วนจีนอาจารย์จางย้ำค่ะว่าสิ่งที่จีนต้องการก็คือทำให้เกิดความเจริญรุ่งเรืองกับทั้งสองประเทศที่ยิ่งใหญ่นี้จีนและสหรัฐค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ